Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to DevChatter. Sorry about that slow startup there. I think I don't know, probably scared off pretty much everybody that was going to be here today. We'll see if people actually up. Okay, so the bot should have actually come in. What's annoying is that right now I updated Visual Studio right before the stream started, and now the bot won't build. So it's kind of annoying. So they changed something, because clearly I'm able to run it in Rider and it works just fine. I can't tell if the stream's a little choppy, if that's just that's on my end, or if it's actually a little weird for some reason. Okay, well, either way, let me know if you guys notice any problems, more than just a little bit of choppiness. Whoa, man, did that not work? See, that's what I was wondering about, was that gonna happen? Okay, so the bot just did a hilarious thing. We changed one of the features of it on the last stream, and it just did something hilarious. Okay, so hello, welcome everybody. Sorry for the strange start there. As you probably know, since you're here, my name is Brendan. You can see it right down below me here. And this here channel that we're on is DevChatter, and that includes all of you. And we are here today to talk about the single responsibility principle. So this is a special episode of DevChatter. This is actually part of a new series that we are starting called Solid Saturdays. So if you are interested in learning more about the solid principles of object-oriented design, you are in the right place. So I guess the quick thing that I want to talk about is, what is solid? Why do we care? What is this thing? Why is Brendan wanting to do a whole series on a specific topic? And the short answer is, the solid principles of object-oriented design represent a collection of 5 principles that, when followed, help you to structure your code in a way that is more maintainable in the long term. For anyone that has worked on any long-lived projects, any real professional projects, I know we have a lot of beginners that are learning to code, either at a university or just on their own, that are here in the chat frequently. You all would know that it's, how to phrase this, the code that you write has to be maintained more frequently than the original time it was written. And because of that, it's important to write code that can change over time, because any piece of code is going to be read by people and adjusted more times than one, because you only wrote it once, but you're going to come back and look at it, and you're going to change it, you're going to fix bugs in it, you're going to add features to it, and that's why we care. Have a good one, S&B. We'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I am actually going to do a small amount of slides just to cover some topics right at the beginning. Yeah, I know this isn't a slide stream. We're going to live code, but I do want to discuss these points first. So the first one that we want to talk about is called the single responsibility principle. That's what we're doing this week. We are going to talk a little bit about the single responsibility principle. This is just going to be the beginning. Don't worry, we're going to be live coding soon. And then after we talk a little bit about it and what it is and why we care, then we're going to look at some examples of how we are following it in our code base. And then while we're doing some live coding, we're going to discuss how what we do helps us to follow the single responsibility principle. So we're going to focus today on the single responsibility principle, trying to use it effectively, and then next week, obviously, SOLID, as I said, is an acronym, SOLID. Next week, we will be covering the L, Liskov substitution principle, and then obviously, the O, open close principle, and then the week after, L for, I can't spell, Liskov substitution principle, and then we'll get to the interface segregation principle and the dependency inversion principle. So of the 5, the ones that I think have been picked up the most by the developer community so far are, to a point, the single responsibility principle. I think people mostly try to do this one, although I think there's a couple of points people get caught up on. And then the other one that has gotten wide adoption among the developer community so far is dependency inversion. So that has actually broken through, which is impressive. It's a big one. So everybody that's using IOC containers, we're going to look at that, talk about why it is that we want to do that. Because I know that a lot of people are probably just following along the Kool-Aid. Yeah, you wire up DI and IOC like everybody says. And we're going to talk about why. Okay, so single responsibility principle. For this one, notice the subtitle there says, objects should have only one reason to change. So this is already a big concept that I want to explain, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but it doesn't say objects should have one responsibility. It says they should have one reason to change, which really is a clarification on the title of this principle. Let's take a look at, first, a funny example. So, one of my favorite examples that we can look at, if this will switch, it's just going to do that, huh? Okay, yeah, just beep at me. Thanks. Okay, so one of the funny examples that we could look at is this that came from one of our calendars that a bunch of us did years ago. We made this page on our calendar. We said single responsibility, and this funny picture of a mouse that has a whole bunch of, knives, corkscrews, scissors, whatever on it. It's a Swiss Army knife in a mouse. And the idea being that that would be really, really inconvenient, because why would it might make sense to have a pocket knife nearby when I'm at my computer, or a screwdriver, or a corkscrew, or something like that, maybe. So I might want some of these tools nearby, but why would I attach it to a mouse? It's just silly. And so we do this kind of thing as developers all the time, where we'll take two responsibilities and we'll just kind of stick them together because it's like, oh yeah, that seems kind of related sometimes, but other times you want them to be separate. So that's really the problem we're getting at. Now this is just a humorous thing about it, but let's take a look at some actual examples of what we would get in code. And don't worry, we're actually going to write code in a minute. I wanted to go with a simple thing that everybody understands. So every application that any of us has written, especially if you've written a web application, might have to do something related to sending email. Whether it's just to verify someone's email address, or reset a password, or notify them about something that's happened in the system, email is a pretty common feature that most of us are used to. So if we look at reasons to change for different types of classes, Anakim Luke, greetings, welcome. The bad example that we've got is pretty common in a lot of things. So when someone talks about, oh, my class has one responsibility, okay, it's my email manager. What does it do? Well, it just manages email. It doesn't manage other things, it just manages email. And I hear that a lot from people. They do that one, and they've found a word that encompasses more than one thing. And that's why I like one reason to change. And I like that's the official phrasing too, and it's intentional that it's one reason to change, not one responsibility. And the idea here is that the email manager might have to change when we change how we send email. Maybe we say that it also needs to copy extra people. That's a change that affects the email manager. Well, we might also decide that when we get replies, we want to make sure that we capture that content. So if someone replies to the email, we want that as well. So, oh, that's the email manager that does that. Well, that's another reason for it to change. And then you might say like, oh yeah, it needs to compose the email that it's going to send. Okay, that's another responsibility. That's another reason it's going to change. And it might do its own logging. And as you can see, this class this email manager is doing a whole bunch of stuff. And even if it only did a couple of these, that's still more than one reason to change. So the better example, and this is the style of coding that you'll find on, in a lot of well-structured applications that are easier to maintain, is you'll have a separate piece for each one of those. So you'll have an email sender, you'll have an email composer, you'll have an email logger. I didn't list one here, but you might have an email receiver, for example. And the idea is that the email sender only changes if the way we send email changes. So even with that, it doesn't change if, for example, the server we send to changes. That's going to be in a config file. It's not going to change if we change the content of the email. That's part of the email composer or some other object. It's not going to change if we decide we need to log more information. Again, these types of things need to not be the responsibility of the actual email sender class. And that's the huge thing. The composer obviously changes based on content, the logger changes based on logging. So we're able to get this nice structure where each thing does one thing and one thing only, and it does it well. Now, we write a lot of code here on the channel. So our main project is our DevChatter bot. It's the thing that's actually talking there in the chat. It says DevChatter bot, hey, got questions? Feel free to ask them. Right, so it's over there, and you can all chat with it. When we wrote that, we tried to follow a lot of the solid principles. So I can point to a number of places where we are following those principles, including the single responsibility principle. Now, as we talk about these, I do want to make sure that people understand that the solid principles, all 5 of them, are very interrelated. So as we talk about one, we will bump into the others a little bit. So if you know each one of them, then you'll see as we go through this that we're going to talk a little bit about the others, just a bit. And I may point that out, but I'm going to try to refrain from getting to them before we get to it. So, for example, when we get to the open-close principle next week, we'll mention the single responsibility principle as we see it. Engels Ulsky. Oh, you love my thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I hope to not stop doing this content. I love doing it. So, okay, so we have some examples in our DevChatter bot, and I am actually going to pull these up in Visual Studio, actually probably in Writer, because Visual Studio is currently not building our project because it updated and broke. So thanks, Microsoft. But anyway, what we're going to look at here, we're going to pull up these classes, we're going to take a look at them, but I want to point them out really quickly as a set and say this is a set of classes that each have one reason to change. They follow the single responsibility principle and are good. So, well, good to a point. I should mention, as a developer, it is really hard to look at your code and not be like, oh, I wish that were a little different. I wish that were, like, you can look at any piece of code you've ever written, you always have ways that you would like to make it better. These, I would say, are following the single responsibility principle well enough that I am okay with them. So the first one here is the add alias operation, the delete alias operation. So add deals with adding aliases to things. So I will give you an example. If I run the commands command in the chat, you'll notice it spits out a whole bunch of commands. First off, I need to clean up what it prints out. Entirely other thing. I also have the alias command. If I run the alias command, all it does is spit back the help text. So that's this third one here, the alias command, this bottom one. Well, the alias command has 2 operations that it does. The first one is alias add, and the second one is alias delete. So the add and delete operations are 2 operations that the alias command can do. So let's try that. We have, as we said, the command. So I am going to type in alias add, and then I'm going to say CMD, and I will do CDM. So if you watch in the chat over there, you'll see that it just made CDM is now an alias for CMD. Now what's interesting about that is that I can now run CDM. Actually, I can't because there's a bug, but I can run the command and that runs. But I can also do this then. I can say alias remove, and I can say CDM, and it will remove that command. So those are two operations. What's interesting about that is the alias command itself does not actually know how adding and deleting work. It doesn't know it. So you'll notice that I said alias rem CDM, right? I said alias remove. But I could have said alias delete. If you looked at the original instructions on our alias command that it printed out there in the chat, you will see that it told us that we could use alias del to delete. So the point is that delete itself has multiple ways of being called, so does add, and the command doesn't care. So we'll look at that, and that's a cool structure for how we can do single responsibility. The next thing over here is the example on the right is how we're doing our caching of the results from our schedule command. So if you haven't seen it, our schedule command, which I just ran over there, will tell you when the schedule of the stream is. In this case, I passed in no parameter, and it says what our schedule is on UTC. So that's UTC plus 0, we're at 6 p.m. on Mondays and Tuesdays, 4 p.m. on Thursdays, and 5 p.m. on Saturdays. That's all well and good. However, I don't live in UTC time. I live in Ohio. So I can tell the bot, hey, I live in Ohio, and say schedule Ohio, and it will tell me that the stream's on Monday at 2, Tuesdays at 2, Thursdays at noon, and Saturdays at 1. And that's nice because it customized to me. But if I run this again, schedule or schedule Ohio, when I run that, in order to figure out where Ohio is, what time zone it's in, and get me the right time, it actually has to make a web request out to do that. I didn't bother getting all the time zones for every location that could exist around the world. That would be pointless. So what I did instead is I call out to Google. So the third list item here is the Google API time zone lookup, and that actually makes a web request out to Google. We also have a cached time zone lookup. And what that does is it checks to see if we have a cache. So if we have a cached item, so it says, hey, do I already have Ohio? I do. Okay. I'm going to use the cached version of the Ohio lookup, and we'll use that. Now, keep in mind, you might be thinking, hang on, that has two responsibilities. That's caching and deciding to go look at the Google API. No, it's not. It's not. And the reason it isn't is because it doesn't actually look at the cache. The EF cache layer does. So that's the neat trick. And yeah, there you go, Dreams. You can do schedule for Germany as well, and it will give that to you. So it's pretty awesome. So anyway, the cool thing is we have one class that knows how to access the cache, one class that knows how to talk to Google and get the information we need, and then the third one, the cached time zone lookup, it just decides which one to use. It asks each one, hey, can you do this? If you can't, I'm going to ask the other guy. And so that's actually all the cached time zone lookup does. So it's kind of neat because each one has their own responsibility, their own reason to change. So if we decide that we want, a secondary cache or a third, something like that, we can put that in to the cached time zone lookup, and that won't affect how we talk to Google. That won't affect how we talk to our existing cache layer, that is separate. If we change how we store in our cache layer or want a new one, we can change it. So that is the power here. And it's really, really nice. So now that we've talked about that, let's go ahead and take a look. So sorry about the sudden flash of color, now that everybody's eyes are altered there. Let's talk about some of this code. So first off, for anybody who's wondering why I'm in Writer instead of Visual Studio, that would be because I made the mistake of updating Visual Studio today. And it stopped working. So let's pull up the alias command that we talked about. So we were just discussing this one. And the alias command has a couple of things. Oh man, can I get that font bigger for you guys? How's that? Is that big enough, everybody? I can go a little bigger if needed. Just let me know if the text isn't big enough and I will adjust. Okay. That is funny. Alias command is never instantiated. That's right. Awesome, Ancient Coder. Thanks. And feel free to jump in with questions at any point if anybody has them. So, awesome. Thank you, everybody. Glad to hear that the text is readable. Okay. So here's what we're looking at. This is the alias command, and the alias command only does one thing. Notice 67 lines of code, and it has a collection of operations. So this collection of operations that it has right here, it's got a list of them. When we look down here, what it does is it says, where is it? Here it is. Operations, singular default. And for each operation, it asks it, hey, do you execute on this operator? And if the answer is yes, we grab that one and use it. Now, I did a single here, right here. And the reason I did this is because I want a bit of safety for us as the developer here. So, at any given time, only one operation should respond to a command that I type in. So I put this here so that if I ever use a command that could get triggered in more than one, like, right? If I type in let me show you. So if I do the command foo with the operation bar and the parameter baz, which I just typed in over there, that is a the word bar in that case needs to only apply to one operation. I need to have a single thing that's going to work with. And as long as there's only one, then we're okay. But I don't want to have any more than that. So if a second thing responds, that's bad. So I want it to blow up. So that's why we did single. If more than one item responds and says, hey, I can work with that, then it's going to blow up. Okay. Command word policy. Type single. Type name. Repository single command word policy. Full type name. Command word. I'm confused why this is here. Does that do anything? Oh! Oh, I know what that is. Okay. I think. No! I don't think this should be here. Anyway, we'll take a look at that at another point. So this is the alias command. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot going on, and that is a good thing. That means when we need to change how the alias command works, we can do it without much effort. For example, if we wanted to make it so the default behavior of it did something else other than just displaying the help text, that's where we do it. Now, the add alias operation, if I open that up, that's this one. Why did that not just default to roughly speaking that size? Do they list my zoom percent anywhere? I don't see it. Okay, so add alias operation. This one, you'll notice, is slightly smaller than the alias command itself, but it also does not do all that much, and that's ideal. So it has a list of operand words that it responds to, the first one here being add, but we could also say new, right? So you could say alias new that. We could also say create. Okay, and I've just added those in here, and we might have decided, hey, I want to change how we add aliases. Okay. Add, new, and create are now acceptable. That's a reason to change this class. I'm changing how we create aliases. I'm not changing how we remove them. I'm not changing how we run them. I'm only changing how we create them. And that's its reason to change, is it only has the responsibility of adding new aliases. So, that's how this one works. It's very nice. The next one is the delete alias operation. Hey Brave Cobra, welcome. Now, it, by extension, has the same basic basically, Anakim Luke, it's make things modular, but it's think about the level. Because, keep in mind, there's still a reasonable amount of stuff that happens in adding a new alias. So this is still doing something valuable. We didn't get so small that add alias is useless on its own. This still has value on its own. So that's how small you want to get. You want to get small enough that you got one responsibility. Not so small that you have like half a responsibility. And that's the key. Okay. Delete, same token. We have a handful of operand words it responds to, and that's how it gets us in here. And then it tries to execute. I want to point out another neat thing. So, I mentioned that add alias only changes when we need to change how we add aliases. And the same goes for deleting. Now here's the thing. You might say, well hang on, it also changes based on if you need to decide how you call the alias operation. And no, it doesn't. And the reason for that is the base command operation actually takes care of that part. So notice here that the should execute method is down here inside of our base class. Now, I like composition over inheritance. This is a great example of that. That's not one of the solid principles, but that is a generally accepted good practice in an object-oriented language. So, looking at that, because we followed the single responsibility principle, we are able to compose the alias command with these additional pieces of functionality. Notice add alias operation and delete alias operation do not inherit from the alias command, which would be the inheritance style of doing this, and we don't want that. That's bad. What we did instead is we have a simple abstract base class that just comes with the basics of being an operation. Then, when we actually use it, we're able to compose it together into one large alias command that does a variety of things. Does that make... I hope that makes sense. So that's actually the approach that we want to take, because I'm sure you all have heard composition over inheritance. And this is an example of how that works. And when you're following the single responsibility principle, that kind of thing comes up and is easier to do. So it's easier to compose things together when you've made them small to begin with. All good? Awesome. Let me know if any of that is unclear. If it is, then I will have a look at it. I am going to try rebuilding in Visual Studio. And Code Air, welcome. Thank you for giving us that host there. We'll find out if that works. So today I made the mistake of updating Visual Studio, and apparently they changed something with an SDK or some kind of build package, because we're getting a TypeScript error that I didn't have time to dig into before the stream. So that is actually why we're over here in Rider today. So if you haven't used Rider, it is actually a JetBrains product. So if you've heard of ReSharper, this is the IDE that's actually written for C# from the company that made ReSharper. So works out pretty well. It's always nice to have a backup, huh? Actually, now that I think about it, I could have tried the preview too. So I'm going to run that. Oh, that's funny. It's going to pop up a thing, isn't it? Okay. I want to find out what this is complaining about. That can be made private. No, it can't be. Is this ever used? Yes, it's used right here, but nothing ever connects to it. Oh man, these are gonna fight. Okay. Much better. So, we made a command alias modified event so that we could tweak our alias system, so we could adjust the list when we modify those. So that was a nice thing we did there. I like that. Okay. Let's take a look. First off, if that would ever build. So I made a couple of quick changes here. I don't think that actually matters. But this one sort of does, actually. So let's take a look at things. For anyone who doesn't know, and I mean this should be mildly obvious, all the code that we do here on the stream is actually pushed out to GitHub. So if you go to github.com/devchatter, you will actually be able to find all the code that we do here on the stream, including the code that we are working on today. So I want to click that, and I want to say refactoring and fixing the interval messages. Because I noticed that I have a pull request I didn't send in yet. So I'm going to do that real fast. For anyone who isn't familiar with GitHub, this is how I send code from the branch I'm working on into the master branch. And I can put this in here. Ooh, we're out of date. Okay. We must have sent in something small. So I'm going to click Update. And that'll just do a quick merge out on GitHub and fix it up. Hey, hello world. I'm the... Is it the Wally? Just guessing. But welcome. Maybe I got your name right. If not, let me know and tell me how to say it right, and I will attempt to do better. Wally. Yep, awesome. Got it. Well, that's what you get for saying it. Once you wrote it that way once, everybody can type it that way now, huh? Okay, other things to mention while we're digging into this. So I'm going to get that merged in. We're going to jump back to code and code before that happens, but if anyone is interested in chatting after the stream, I recommend joining our Discord. And other things to check out are our YouTube channel and our Twitter, which I'm going to link there as well. Okay, so today we are actually doing a special thing that I want to mention to people. We are doing an event today that is called our... it's this one right here. It's live. It says it is. And since it says it's live, we know it's live because there's no way that anything on the internet can ever be wrong. That's an awesome thing, by the way, especially since a lot of us are web developers. Remember, nothing on the internet is ever wrong. Heyo, Lapis for the win. So we're talking about the single responsibility principle. So my plan for today, we've talked a little bit about it, we described it, we pointed out that it's not about just responsibilities, it's about having only one reason to change. And we looked at some of our code and how it's designed to only have one reason to change. So as we code today, I want you to think about that. I'm going to bring things up, and I want you to remember each thing should have one reason to change. So, like we pointed out in... And thank you for the follows, by the way. I think I saw someone else follow and their thing didn't pop up, but thank you for the follows all the same. We discussed in our add alias operation that it has a single responsibility. It is just about adding aliases. It doesn't care about how we store them. It doesn't care about how you actually use an alias. It doesn't care about the deletion of aliases. It doesn't care about how you get commands to the bot. It just cares about adding. And that's what's nice about it. Okay. Oh, and did I make a solid command? No. Why did I not make a solid command? I really should have. Anyway, I'll link the event manually. So, if anyone is interested in catching the rest of this series, which will be going on, we're doing solid Saturdays, so each Saturday I'm going to cover another one of the solid principles. So next week, for example, is the open-close principle, and we'll focus on that. But if you do want to get reminders of this, you can go to that URL, and you can actually get a reminder for that one by just clicking on the heart for the ones that you want to attend. Okay. Hey! Facu Rodriguez! Welcome! You really gotta let me know how to pronounce your name, not like an American with a really bad accent at one of these days. But welcome back. Good to see you. Okay, so that is what we've got. Where'd my command go? I am so confused. Oh, good. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna jump over here. Commands break with namespace changes. So I made an adjustment. So we have some code called the command handler. So as you can probably guess, our bot has a whole bunch of commands that can do various things, like get us the uptime. So how long has the stream been going? And we saw the alias, we saw command, and it's got various other ones as well, including some games. So you can play Hangman in the bot and, you know, guess letters and try to... I think I guessed the word already, everybody. Look. Maybe you can figure out what that last letter is. So, congratulations, Lapis. Good job. So anyway, so the fun thing is we have all these different commands. And I mentioned when talking about single responsibility that the commands themselves don't really know how they get executed. Like, they know, hey, I respond to this word, so Hangman knows that it responds to hangman. For example, hangman command. If I open up the hangman command and take a look at this, I want to point something out that's kind of interesting. We typed in HM to trigger it, right? The letters HM. I just typed that into chat just to be clear what I was saying there. Those letters you don't find here. HM. Like, I just did a search. You notice that red bar up at the top there? It's not in there. It doesn't appear. So how did that work? Well, that was our aliasing. And so the significant thing is that that means commands don't know how they get run. Commands just get run. And that's great. That means they're not caring about that responsibility. The command handler is. So the command handler actually has to care about when do we run a command. It decides when do we handle which commands. That's all it cares about, is just when do we run these things. Am I supposed to be running this? And that's what it does. So let's take a look at what is in here. So the command handler, command received handler, right here, what it does is we're wired into the IRC, not really the IRC. The Twitch chat is IRC, but we're actually connected to it through WebSockets in the bot. And what ends up happening is when you type in chat, like this, typing in chat, what happens is those do get sent as messages to the bot potentially if it wants to respond to them. So, like how all of you got that chat message in your chat window, the bot got it also. But whenever a line is prefixed with an exclamation point, that's a special one, and that's considered a command. This is a command. So when I type that, that actually went to the bot got "this is a command," like that, as the text that it received as the command text. And when it did that, yeah, nice job, Kasru. Yeah, we can get you one, Kasru. It won't work right away because we have a bug, but I'll give you one. Let's see, add command, everyone, there we go. New command added. Okay, so solid principles are like separate of your functions. Use it. Okay. So Lapis, the solid principles of object-oriented design are about how to work effectively inside of an object-oriented programming language. So specifically, the one we're looking at today is the single responsibility principle, and how each one of the classes that we create should have one reason to change. That's what we're looking at, is that concept. Due to a lot of other ones, we know the importance of having layers of abstraction, and depending on I'll say, without jumping into the context of all the other ones, which I guess I'll just mention them all, the open-close principle is about controlling how you change things over time. So a lot of our structure is also in here designed with open-closed in mind so that we can maintain long-term. So single responsibility and open-close principle are about long-term maintenance. Liskov substitution, the third one, is about not making bad changes over time, sort of. The interface segregation principle is also one that we like to follow, and I even realized recently that I broke the interface segregation principle in this project and had to fix it. We noticed that on, I think, Thursday, and we're like, oh, this is actually a violation of this, because I tried to do something, and I was like, ooh, this is hard. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually because we broke one of the solid principles. But it happens to all of us. We do it all the time, and the key is noticing it, recognizing it, and hopefully we'll get you to recognize it as well. And that's the thing we're doing here with single responsibility, is this. Notice this file got to 100 lines. Which, it's funny to say, because I've worked on projects that had 50,000 line files, 100,000 line files. Yeah, so the idea, Lapis, is planning for change. Now, we don't want to be infinitely flexible because that's too costly, but we want to try and build code in such a way that we know it's going to change. And the key is, the spot that changes multiple times, that's the one that you want to apply them the most. So if you come back and change something, you're in here to add a new feature, you're in here to make a change, that's the spot where you apply solid. And the reason, the fact that you changed it once means it's more likely to change again in the future. So it's a really, really big concept. And I will explain that again, especially when we're talking about open close next week. Brave Cobra, I think it depends, because screen sizes vary, font choices vary. I don't think that that's a very good metric. I know just from my personal standpoint that this 100-line file that we have here feels too big to me. So I think that there is a second responsibility in this class that probably shouldn't be here. And welcome, is that Sirlash? And I apologize for butchering that name if I did, but welcome. Hello. And I noticed Brave Cobra's here as well, so welcome, Brave Cobra. You made it. And yes, Brave Cobra, if you want to set yourself a goal that is something like a code, your code should fit on one screen, I think that's a pretty good one. So if I were actually working on this, this is roughly speaking how much like the font size I would use. I'm not going to use that with you guys, but this is slightly too big. So, and yeah, I would agree. This probably has, I don't know, maybe 20 lines more than it should, I feel. So, Sirlash, welcome. I will endeavor to make sure that I get that name right. As I do with most people, I try to get your name right. It's very difficult because lots of different languages and pronunciations, even of the same text. How do you determine how much functionality should be in a single given class? So it's not always an amount of functionality, and that's part of the reason why Brave Cobra and I were talking about it being a goal that you get down to that point. And yeah, Lapis, that's part of the problem with setting those goals is that you... Alright, I love that question. Hang on, I gotta get to that in a second. So it's like... If you want to add more functionality to a class, even if it's the same responsibility, the same reason to change, you're adding more to it, that's okay. You can, you can extend to the point that you need to. I don't want to say never exceed this limit. That's why I won't say, a method can never exceed 10 lines. A class should never, be outside your screen. And that's part of the rules. I don't want to put that in there, and I don't think anyone else should. Those can be your goals. You can say, hey, yeah, I want to have short methods, I want to have small classes, and set yourself the goals, but don't hard enforce them, because there are definitely going to be times where it's better to just do that. And there are cases where it's like, yeah, you could break it up, but in that case, it's actually going to be worse. And that's where judgment comes in. That's why you and I are programming. Instead of just having, an artificial intelligence doing this, we can think and come up with these. Brave Cobra, chat client is not disposable. The chat client actually persists for the length of this, because it needs its events to still be there. The chat client is actually persistently connected and constantly receiving. Yeah, exactly, Brave Cobra. Yep, there's no memory leak because it does not. Yep, you got it. Okay, Aura's Observer. I want to get to your question real quickly. You're wondering why I'm not using ReSharper. I'm not actually in Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio. And I do have ReSharper in both Visual Studios that I've got up. However, this is JetBrains Rider. So this is actually an entirely different IDE that still runs C# code, and this is actually the one written by JetBrains. Cyrilash, I'm not using it intentionally. I mean, I have it installed, and it's okay. This is basically ReSharper the IDE. So if you took ReSharper and you blew it up into a whole IDE, that's Rider. Oh, .josh, that's awesome. So I have not actually made the switch to Rider yet. I've thought about it. Yeah, but that's a very good ReSharper on steroids. So that's actually why I'm over here. So why I'm not using ReSharper. Hang on. Let me go ahead and build real fast. So I just jumped over into Visual Studio, and I'm going to attempt to build the bot. Same bot that's running. Nope. Okay, so I downloaded an update to Visual Studio today. After downloading that update, I'm getting an error in Visual Studio, and the bot won't build. So I was like, can't get this working, about to start the stream, want to be working on the bot, don't want to spend the beginning of the stream figuring out a compiler error. So what I did, and it's a stupid one too, it's just like a targets file for TypeScript, which I'm not even using. Ugh. Anyway, so Visual Studio is being stupid, and so I just switched over to Rider, which is another IDE that, hey, guess what? It's working fine, and some people couldn't even tell the difference. They're like, yeah, it looks like Visual Studio. Okay, so that's cool. No, I was not going to invite Fritz on the stream. Although I should invite Fritz on the stream at some point. I've been a guest on his stream. He has not been a guest on my stream. So let me catch up on chat real quickly, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, yeah, .josh switched to Rider. I love that. And Lapis, you were asking why the bot is sending so many messages. So on our last stream, we were testing out our messaging system and changing how our interval messages work. So we were actually doing a lot of testing of the bot itself. And as a result, I created a whole bunch of extra messages, so the bot has additional messages that it is trying to use because we wanted to be able to test some things. So that is actually what that is. So hence all its extra messages that you're seeing. You switch as a full-time professional .NET developer for 17 years. Oh, so yeah, see? And welcome, Code Rushed people. Hopefully, your volumes were not twisted up too much, and I did not just deafen you. But welcome, everybody. We're doing a little bit of coding today, and should be fun. So, welcome, Mark. Welcome, Bill. Welcome, everybody else that was over there. Let's see. Do they add support for C# 7.3 in Rider? Yeah, there should be 7.3 support in Rider. And I say that because, well, actually, I can't give you 100%. It should be. If it's not, I'd be very surprised. And hey, Aaron, welcome. Hey, everybody. So, welcome everybody that was over in Code Rushed. We are doing some C# coding. We might do some JavaScript here on the stream today. We are working on our chatbot. That is our main project here on the channel. And we are mainly discussing the single responsibility principle and how we have applied it in our code. So we're talking about building good code, and it's a discussion. So if you've got opinions on how this stuff should work, or ideas for how we can improve our code, shout them out in chat. We are all here to improve everything we're doing. Okay, so looking at this, inside of our command handler, it has, hang on, sorry about that. Yes, exactly, Janiscu. Solid C#. So we have command list, command messages. What's this? That name is poor. How did we get that name? What? Sorry, wrong button. That should be command list. Yes, get that. So I'm going to do a quick rename there, because I noticed a problem. So one tip that I would give to anybody who's coding just in general, when you notice a problem, fix it. One of the biggest suggestions I can give you, if you see something that's wrong, just fix it. Like, if it's simple. There's no reason not to. So I want to branch off of the refactoring branch, because we're going to get that merged in here. And I am going to say SRP stream. So I'm making a special branch just for this stream because we're talking about single responsibility principle. So, and then the other thing, I've got two changes here. This first one, I'm going to commit separately. So I am going to say that this is adding operands to add alias operation. So the first single responsibility class we looked at was that add alias operation. Exactly, Aaron. We have a lot of technical debt to clean up. Everybody's got it. And if you're not just periodically just sweeping a little bit of technical debt away, getting it cleaned up a little bit, you're going to run into major problems. So my favorite stance is following the Boy Scout rule, as it's usually called, which is that you try to leave things a little bit better than you find them. So don't go trying to fix everything. Just be like, oh, I noticed I noticed a small thing, so I fixed that up while I was here. And then I tried not to make anything worse. Now keep in mind, sometimes you have to introduce a little bit of technical debt. There's not a way around it. So that's why you need to be cleaning up all the time. And welcome, Johnson. Hello, hi. Okay, so fix the command list name in command handler. I'm going to commit that as well. Okay, so two things fixed up. Sender in. I don't even know how this could ever happen, to be honest. So, oh, right, no, we were doing it like that. Oh, never mind, I get it. I did something silly. I leveraged a thing. Okay, so here's what we were talking about. The command list is a special class that contains all of our list of commands. And what we do with this is we come down here and we say, all right, from our command list, let's find the first item in here that can respond to our command. So there could be more than, we're allowing for more than one, there might be none. And if there's none, we go ahead and just, you know, fail immediately, and that's fine. Oh, we only processed the command there. That's interesting. Okay. So, the command list. This is what I want to fix. So, oh my god, default font that it's giving me. I apologize for that, everybody. I have to zoom in each time. That is like... Guy Ross, to answer your question, 1 hour and 6 minutes late. Okay, so command list, as we mentioned, is a special iList of ibot command. It is a list of these commands, and we are using this list in order to determine which ones should run. I am really surprised that it has all these things on it. I don't have CodeLens right now, otherwise I would tell you how it was written and why. That's kind of weird. Guess it's one of these, so it has to implement all of these. That's weird. Anyway, I don't think I actually wrote this class, but it has a fairly interesting use. We need a way of refreshing its data. So, I am going to do this. If I can... Oh, I can't guess the commands. No? I swear that's how you do that in ReSharper. Alt F7. Yeah, that's what I was hitting. Okay, I don't know then. Okay, so down here, I apologize you won't be able to see this one. This is way too small. 4 usages. So that's a field declaration, that's a parameter declaration, and this is new instance. So this is the point that we want. This is where it was created. So our command list is created at this exact point. So Guy Ross, the thing that you missed, and I know there are a bunch of new people in here, so probably people missed a bunch of stuff. I'm going to recap just for a moment what we've done so far today. First off, I mentioned to everybody that we have our code out on GitHub, so if you want to see any of our code, you can go to github.com/devchatter to check it out. I also mentioned that we have a Discord, so if you want to chat with me or any of the other people that are here in chat about developer stuff, programming languages, principles, practices, patterns, any other computer-related stuff that you want to chat about, that is a great place to do it. There are about 200 of us in there, and there's some good discussions about some topics that people are interested in. So if you want to get involved in those discussions, that's the place to do it. And if you don't know what Discord is, think Slack, but for gamers. Okay, so the quick background on what we're doing today is we are talking about the single responsibility principle. So we're doing our regular coding, but we want to have a focus today on a topic, and not like an area of code we're working on, but just a general idea of trying to follow single responsibility principle. And that is the first of the solid principles of object-oriented design. So in the beginning, I talked about what solid is, what the single responsibility is, and how that works, and the idea that anything should have one reason to change. And so we have been chatting about that and looking at how it works in our code. And right now, I am actually going to track down a bug and fix it. And while we go through the code looking at that, we're going to discuss how any given thing does or does not follow the single responsibility principle. So that's what we're doing today. So that's all you missed, Guy Ross. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the stream, though. Because if people do like this and like this format, then I will, keep going through the whole solid principles. Okay, so Aidan, you're in high school and you're on the primary section. You're going to have a learning Python after I'm done with school. Should I move to United Kingdom and get a degree? Oh, that's a big question. It is very important to... So, a lot of places... glad you guys are liking the stream. Yes, and Kazru became special. So, the big thing I would tell you is, in some places, it's hard to find a programming job without some kind of piece of paper that says you know what you're doing. Whether that is a degree from a university, or whether it is a certificate of completion at a coding camp of some kind, or whether it is just your resume that lists many years of experience programming. A lot of places have those restrictions. I'm not going to get into the big discussion of whether or not you need those. However, I think there is some value in going if you want to go there to learn something. So that is a big question. If you want to make a career out of programming, I would recommend that you in some way go to get formally educated in programming so that people are more likely to hire you. Because I don't want to see you going and trying to find a job somewhere and just being told, no, you don't meet the minimum requirements. That's not to say don't try, because if you can get the job without it and you really do already know how to program, that piece of paper isn't going to make you any better. And Ancient Coder, without jumping in too far, I have worked with developers straight out of university, developers that are still in university, and developers that have come out of boot camps. I have hired all of those people as developers before, and I can tell you, they have different strengths and weaknesses. The ones that are coming out of the boot camp don't know all the low-level stuff. They don't know what's going on around in memory. They don't know about things like pointers and memory management. The students come out of the boot camp rarely actually know about that. They don't know the underlying data structures that are going on in their language. However, they've usually learned more about test-driven development, unit testing, actual tech stacks they're planning on working in, so they're more likely to know, for example, MVC and Razor pages than the student coming out of the university. And again, this varies depending on the boot camp, the university, and more specifically the student. So, the big recommendation I make to anyone that is in a university-style setting, if you want to remove that barrier and be able to just be better than the boot camp student, period, my recommendation to you, do stuff. Do stuff on the side. Like, the smartest developers that I graduated from my university with, we were all doing stuff on the side. Every one of those people, they had side projects they were working on the entire time. So there is not a moment in my career in college or afterwards that I did not have at least one side project that I was coding. So, biggest thing you can do to make yourself a better developer. The Wally. As a current student, what programs do you think I should be developing for future employers to see on my GitHub? Ooh, that's a great question. There's two things there. I would recommend you put things like programming exercises and katas that you've worked on, especially if you do like some of the mainstream ones. So have the things like FizzBuzz and stuff like that. Fork some open source repositories that exist and make some contributions to them. And then the last thing I would recommend you do is write some of your own projects and use current tech. So go out, find out, pick a tech stack, maybe it's the .NET Core one, and go build something using the latest version of its tools. And just, it doesn't matter what the app is. Build a to-do app, like it doesn't matter. But build something in it and just have that as like, hey, I've got a few projects out here on my GitHub, you can mention that, and you can say like, hey, one of them's just a project I was working on to learn this. Some of them are katas that I've done, just to keep my skills sharp. And then the third set is I forked XYZ open source project so I could send them some contributions. And that would be like gold. You write that put that in your cover letter. Mention that. Talk about your GitHub that you're linking in your resume. And that is a great thing you can do that employers will love. Simon Jeering, exactly. So if you can get the job without going to the university and spending all that money, you can absolutely do that, because anything you could learn in university, you could learn outside of it. So, yep. And as S&B said, you could contribute to the documentation for .NET Core, for example. And that is a nice, easy way to have forked something and made a contribution to an open source project. Favorite side project while working at a university. My favorite side project while I was in university was I say side project here, but I was actually working there. I worked for a tech department, and I built our application that managed all of our workload. So all the thing like our ticketing system. So when people would put in a request, that would like set off buzzers and alarms if it was an important one or something like that, or if it had to do with certain types of things at certain times it would set off alarms. Otherwise it just goes into the list and is standard, like, you know, just CRUD application on a ticketing system, permissions and various things like that. So I did one of those that was used by multiple departments around the university, and I was the guy writing it. So it's kind of cool when you think, like, yeah, there are people professionally using my code while I'm just a student. So I'm pretty proud of that one. One thing that you might not realize is there's actually a TV news company in the United States was actually using that. I don't think they knew it was written by, you know, kid. They just happened to have one of our alums working there, and so they pulled that in. So I thought it was kind of funny. So that was my favorite side project when I was at university. But that's kind of the point, is like you can, you know, build stuff. So, and I mean, and keep in mind that application looked terrible. This was like, this was not recent, not modern web dev. That was old web dev. That ticketing system was on the web, and it was as ugly as you'd expect an old website to be. Facu Rodriguez, SRP also applies to solutions, projects, or only to functions and classes. So single responsibility, as it's said, technically applies to classes. However, you can definitely apply it down to the function level as well. When we're talking higher level, like packages, solutions, projects, whatever term you want to use for it, there are other principal names that we apply for the same concept. So the name changes, but the concept's the same. So we describe single responsibility not as one responsibility, we describe it as one reason to change. Now, one reason to change doesn't apply at the level of a project. Too many reasons to change a project. Obviously, we can't have it just be one. So, at that level, we talk about the idea of packaging related items together. And so it's about making sure that things are related, are packaged together. So I will jump over here for a quick example of this. If you look at the packages that the projects that exist in our solution here, you will notice a couple of things. Oh, big follow train going. Thank you both for following the channel, by the way. And yes, more read, bounded context. That is a perfect term there. That is another level that we want to build at. But what I want to point out is we have the core business logic in the application is all in here. See, there's that follow train going. But then everything that connects to Entity Framework is here. Everything that connects to the Google API is here. This is everything that that's everything that connects to Twitch. This is everything that requires web, but is not actually part of the website. This is the website. And so you'll notice that we've packaged related stuff together. We're actually still going to break this apart further, we just haven't done it yet. So some of these structural changes, we applied that when we needed it because we knew, hey, we're adding Google, we're going to need a Google API project. And so that's sort of following the same principle here, but we call it by a different name at this level. So, yeah, awesome. That was a great question, by the way. Glad you liked the advice, Wally, an ancient coder. Oh, yeah, a simple bookkeeping application could be good. Yeah, that's a great suggestion there, S&B. Kazru, do you ever feel intimidated by software that has been made before? Oh, no. Okay, that is a fantastic question. I'm actually going to talk about that one because I love that question. If a company asks you to develop XYZ for them, but something very great already exists. Okay, so if a business shows up, if your employer ever says to you, hey, build this thing, and you're sitting there thinking, but that's a product that already exists. It's our responsibility as a developer to speak up and say, hey, is there a reason we're not just using XYZ other software? And the idea is here that developers are not cheap. So if you have me work on a project for a year, me and say like, a team of like 5 other men and women that are all working on the same project, that's expensive. If we build it, like, you better have really, really needed that, because buying from a third party, you probably could have paid for like 10 years of someone else's product, and you don't even have to maintain theirs. And so that's one of the big things. Now, from the standpoint of learning and wanting to build something fun, so here on the stream, for example, if someone says to me, hey Brendan, there's already a great Twitch bot. It was called Ankbot, and it got acquired by Streamlabs, and they make it, and it's great. And I'd go, cool, yeah, I know. Yeah, we're here to write code, though. It's fun. It's fine that one already exists. We're going to write our own. And someone else might be like, why are you reinventing the wheel there? It's like, well, we're not reinventing the wheel. I'm not trying to sell this bot. We're doing this because we want to learn how to make it and figure out how do we get from point A to point B and make some design decisions. Some of them will be good. Some of them will get down the road and be like, that was a mistake. I wish we hadn't done that one. But you don't find that out until you try it. So it's okay to reinvent some wheels now and again. Just don't do it at a business. It's our job as developers to know, hey, there's this other thing that already does this. Maybe we should just use that. Yeah, so Lagzo Limos, I would love to. The challenge is I actually don't, on Twitch, the streamer does not actually control the levels of quality that we can send at. So, basically, quick explanation of what happens. When I send this stream to Twitch, they actually make those tiers. So whenever you have multiple options, choices for what you want, whether you want it to be, 720 or 480 or 360 or 180, whatever quality level you want to pick, what's happening is on Twitch's server, they're dedicating resources to adjusting the stream to those levels for you, like live, and so they prioritize who gets those resources. So big popular channels running games usually get those resources, but sometimes we get them down here. If we want to get priority, then we'll eventually need to reach the partner level on Twitch, which could be a little while. So I apologize I can't get you another level, but I would love to sometime. Any valid reason to doing it from scratch in business in spite of that? Maury, yes, there are some points where you need to reinvent a wheel. And I do have a fantastic example of when reinventing a wheel is a good thing and when it's a bad thing. And I will explain that. If you need a high-level integration with existing systems within the client organizations... Oh, yes, Simon Jeering, that is actually another great suggestion there. How to phrase this? One of the examples of a case where you want to reinvent the wheel. If you are building certain real-world, real-time, very, very high-performance, mission-critical things, I know an organization that runs C++, but they can't use anything out of the standard template library because of how careful they need to be with exactly how everything is managed. So it seems crazy in some ways because you're like, but the standard template library just does everything nice. It's like, well, they run a very specific thing. They're doing embedded systems on some machines, and they have to have their own tech. They're a defense contractor, and I know that that they have their reasons for having to do that, and I think that makes sense. The reason not to try and reinvent the wheel. I heard an interesting story from a good friend of mine recently. So I was talking with him just this Thursday, and he was talking about how the company he worked for got acquired by another company. And the funny thing about it is that the other company had actually tried to reinvent their wheel. And when they failed, so after spending a ton of money trying to build the same thing another company already did, they just bought them. And paid a ton of money to buy out the entire company because they could not reinvent their wheel. And so that's one of the funny things is sometimes even the company that's got a bigger budget will try and fail to reinvent the wheel. And that's why I tell you, in an actual business setting, you usually do not want to reinvent the wheel, because you can run into that where you've spent a ton of money and still failed and then had to acquire. So that's one of the worst things you can run into. But it makes for an interesting story, at least. Corbob, hey, welcome. Thanks everybody that, well, thank you for the host, and welcome anybody that was hanging out in the Corbob stream. I did not realize you were streaming. But welcome everybody. Hopefully everybody's having a good Saturday so far. And Echo Strike coming in with the Twitch Prime sub. That deserves some hype right there. So anybody that's got our hype emote, any subscribers in the channel, make sure to spam those DevChatter hype emotes. And thanks for the follow, Aaron. And thanks for the host, Corbob, and Echo Strike with the sub. Thank you, everybody. Loving it. Currently migrating from free RTS to Kazas. Most companies would not want you to write a cut. This is true, S&B. Most companies would not want you to write custom OSs. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So we are creating the command list. We are passing in the list of commands coming out of services. So we're basically saying, hey, get me all the commands that exist, and adding that as our command list that's passed to everything else. So what that says to me is that we need a new command list. Yes, exactly. The sub. Wait, Stanky Bless. It's not DSP Stanky, is it? I don't know, I haven't seen his emotes ever. Anyway. So, the command list. This is the code that we were looking at. We need a way... okay, that's pretty funny, the Naked Flame. Alright, so we need this to get refreshed whenever something changes. We need a way to add or remove a command. And a Rusty Honda with the Twitch Prime sub. Welcome. Thank you for subscribing. Much appreciated, everybody. We got a sub train going here. Please enjoy your DevChatter hype emotes, and you should all notice you now have new subscriber badges. We've got subscriber eggs. So, they're little dinosaur eggs. And nice. Oh yeah, the Naked Flame. Yeah, you can get gifted subs for all kinds of stuff. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Rusty Honda, and I saw you joined our Discord recently, so welcome. You are really getting involved in the community. If anyone else wants to, that is a link there. And I really appreciate the compliment. I like trying to, promote the greater developer community. I think we have a lot of good people here that are doing great things. So, when this runs, I'm just thinking about this for a second. We have, this is a command list that we added as a singleton, and I don't think it needs to be. It is a function that tells us how to create this object. I don't think this needs to be a singleton. I think this one... I think... we might be able to get away with this. Would you... Sorry, Echo Strike, I missed your question. Welcome, Derek. Thanks for following. Would you expect someone applying for a junior or mid-level developer position to, quote, fully understand dependency injection in IOC? I would say that I would not expect it to be a requirement, Echo Strike. I would think fully is the problem there. Knowing what it is, I think is useful. Knowing how to work with an IOC container, I think, is valuable today. A junior, I wouldn't expect them necessarily to know that, but I would find it valuable. You're asking because you kind of know what it is, but if you told me to implement IOC with an inject, I would have a lot of Googling to do. So first off, I never consider Googling to know how to do something to be a problem. If you can Google it, and, you know, then read through a quick article and implement it, in my opinion, you know it well enough. If that's all it takes. Now, again, define a lot of Googling, because if you have to Google a bunch and it takes you a while, that's different, and you don't really know it. But Googling is always a good thing. It also confirms that you get things right, because sometimes with different packages, they change how you configure them. So I actually do approve of, even if you've set it up before, Google for it to make sure you do it right. And welcome, thanks for subscribing, Marco. Let's see, so Googling is fine, but yeah, exactly, S&B. Just spent a while installing Ubuntu on my laptop, was trying to boot it up from USB and change the boot order. Ouch. It's all about willingness to... Yes, SpawnHub TV, yes, willingness to learn. That is fantastic description. Remember that when you're joining a company as a programmer, there is normally a project in... yes, that is a very good point, Simon. Any organization that you join probably already has an IOC container. Command list should stay the same across the request. We're not going to get separate requests for it, though, Moreed. So Moreed is suggesting that we do an add scoped. I'm actually not sure which type we want. Now, here's the discussion that we're having. So we are deciding what we want to do when setting up our command list. So we have an object that is going to be the list of commands, so that at runtime we can say, hey, when someone wants a command list, we want you to go and create a new one and ask the IOC container to get all the current commands and put them in here. Now, the challenge is this. If I make it a singleton, then every time we request a new version of it, it's going to be the same one. So we moved away from that. If I had a scoped version, that's useful if we're going to make web requests. So when you make web requests to a site, every time someone makes a request, you can say, hey, get me new objects each time. But for that single request, make sure I'm only using that one object. However, our bot, even though this is running in a website, is not actually part of the standard request cycle inside of the web project. I want to point out one other thing before we move on here. Again, talking about single responsibility. We have this background worker. So remember, our stream today, we're focusing on single responsibility principles. So we're discussing how we're using it in the project and talking about it sort of as we try and approach problems. If I don't fix any bugs today, I'm not worried about it, because today is mostly about talking about code and discussing how we built things the way we did and why. So notice I have this 35-line file here that's called the background worker. And what this is this is a hosted service inside of ASP.NET Core. Hosted service right there. That interface, when we register this with our IOC container, we register this with the project and we say, hey, background work is an iHosted service. So hosted service is, as the name says, hosted by our web app. So that means this is a background process running inside of our web application. So when the website starts, it calls start async on this. When the website stops, it calls stop async here. So this is actually running as a separate thread the whole time and has nothing to do with the rest of our website. So it is separated from that so that we are not mixed in with it. So we have this simple thing that just knows, hey, when you start, go ahead and start. And its whole responsibility is just dealing with the concept of how ASP.NET Core is hosted. It's not responsible for things like starting and stopping the bot. That's why those are just called in methods, this run method that we call and this stop method that we call. Those are another thing's responsibility. We don't want two responsibilities. That'd be two reasons to change in here, because we would change both for if the bot behavior changed, as well as if ASP.NET Core changes how an I-hosted service works. So that's why there's nothing in here. So it's kind of cool. Okay, let me catch up on chat real fast here. Could you read the VS Code PowerShell from Microsoft? You just took the feature I wanted and added, started copying the patterns already used in the book. Nice, Corbob. Where that you want to come to this program? There's a normally at my dev job, we take Fridays off to learn something we don't already know. Spawn Hub TV, that's awesome. I love organizations that really build into their culture the idea that developers need to be improving and learning new things all the time, because it also sends the messages both to the developer and to the company that we don't know everything and we need to get better at everything we're doing all the time. No developer knows all the things. So that's really awesome. Next Friday you could learn how long it takes you to fall asleep on the couch. Nice, Echo Strike, yeah. Hey, falling asleep on the couch is a dev thing. Yeah, I love that policy. That sounds great. Spawn Hub TV, you need to tell everybody where you work. It sounds like you might have just poached S&B away. How many hours can a developer sleep on the couch to produce? Yep, great suggestion there, the Naked Flame. That's how we found a way to make that related. Okay, so since we talked about that, we know that we need new instances of this. So what I'm thinking is this. We have a way to get the service collection. Can I do this? Now, I'm giving myself a few extra lines here just because I'm kind of thinking something out as we look at it here. So we're just going to try something and see what comes out of it. So I'm going to say public void refresh. And I almost want to say like underscore list equals, and I'm going to say null for now, but it's going to be an actual value eventually. That will no longer be read-only unless we do it this way. Clear, and then we say add, oh, it's an iList. There is no add range. Whoopsies. Okay. So list clear. I guess we'll add them all, and we'll actually have to do that. I'm not going to add my own extension for that. I'm just going to do a for loop spawn hub TV. It's a for loop's not that bad. Is the question about if it is a singleton or not going to come down to the related question of where is the state held and what is responsible for the lifetime of said state? Simon, so... And welcome, developers that are coming over from the C# Fritz stream. I don't know who he was hosting before now. That was just an auto host, so you were probably watching something else, and all of a sudden you get me. So if you are there, welcome. We're doing a little bit of C# coding and discussing some things as we do it. And our focus for today is talking about the single responsibility principle. So as we discuss it, we are talking about how that applies to our code at what level, and that's sort of just a guided direction of our conversation today. So a main talking point, as you would say. So here's what I'm thinking. This... Okay, so this does not have... So we make a new command list. So I'm wondering about taking a different approach. So I was originally changing it that way, but I'm thinking maybe instead of changing the lifetime of this, we change how we change how it works, adding a refresh to it. I was wondering about if we give it a service provider, if we maybe set it up so that it has something like this. Which I don't like. I do, for the record, I don't like having this in here. We're not going to leave it in here. I'm just thinking something out loud, basically. We have access to this in here? Oh, it's in system? Good job, guys. I hadn't realized they put that all the way into system. Nicely done. Go Microsoft. Well done. Okay, so I added the service provider as a dependency in the command list. And the reason I did this is, over here, I have access to the service provider. I can just pass it in and be like, here, have a service provider. Now, there might be a nicer way to get access to this, but I will admit I don't remember what it is. I don't remember if there's an easy way to get that other than this one. So I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to say that we want to use this over here. So I'm going to say underscore, service provider, get service. Ooh, what extension's that? I don't know if that added a project reference. Okay, so here's the interesting thing that just happened. So I added a reference up to the top of the file of using statements up there. I need to make sure that it did not make a project file change as well. So it may have done so. If it did, that is an issue that we will need to deal with. But I am going to make that read-only because it can be. And then I am going to get a list of bot commands. After we clear that out, we're going to say for each bot command, we're going to say underscore list.add bot command. Done. Okay, so not bad. I'm actually not sure this needs to be implementing that interface anymore. That might be able to change. I realize as I look at that. So in theory, that might work, and then we might be able to just call refresh on this. Let's take a look at where command list is called and why doesn't Alt F7 work? Thanks, writer. Inside the command handler, we use command list, and each time it calls, it says that first or default. Perfect! Yes! Yeah. Oh, it does, because it needs to call this here. That's why. Yep, I figured out why it needs the first or default. Why it needs to be an IEnumerable, because it's going to call first or default on it. Okay, but what that means is this. That tells us without doubt that if we modify the data in that collection, the internal collection in here, it's going to change and we're going to be able to get that working. So perfect. Refresh should work. On command received. Process the command. Okay. So command list is now a thing. Got two thoughts here. Brave Cobra. I'm actually I'm not sure on that one, but one of the nice things about the iList, you're talking about, that's a good point. Right here, that could be an IEnumerable. Good question. I think we might be able to get away with that. I believe you're correct. Which would remove the need to have the add, the clear, the contains, the copy to, the remove, the count. It's a great suggestion. So here's the two approaches I'm thinking about, and let me know what your thoughts are as well. Yeah, no, I think you're right, Brave Cobra. Assuming we can get away with this, this is the better approach. You are 100% correct. So here's my thinking, everybody. The refresh method we just put on here. I put that there because I'm kind of feeling like we need a quick way of refreshing what the commands are in case they change while we're running. So our commands can be modified through chat commands in that chat window. So that's one of the cool things we built into this, is that we can make a bunch of changes while it's running. We can add aliases, we can add new commands, and that's all possible without restarting the bot. It can remain in chat. That used to work a little bit better, but we changed up a little bit about how some of these things are structured, and it's not as nice anymore. The couple of ways that we can do this. We can either make it so that when we add a new alias, there is some kind of a notification sent back to the list or the handler or something like that to inform it of that change. Alternately, we could make it so that when we do one of those changes, we do a full refresh using this refresh command that we put here. And then the third option, which is the easy one that I don't like right now, would be to just make a refresh command for now and then add in one of those other ones later, and then we do have the ability to refresh during the stream and we fix it to a better solution eventually. Hey, lucky number 7, welcome. Thank you for following. Let me go catch up on chat real fast, because I saw a bunch of stuff came in while I was discussing that exact point. What do you think is better for dependency injection? Passing parameter? And there's the follow message. So, in general, I like dependencies to come in through the constructor as a parameter. I like that better for most circumstances, because I think that creates a nice situation where at creation you've said, these are what I require in order to run. If I didn't require them in order to run, I'm probably violating the single responsibility principle, because I probably only need that some of the time, which means I'm probably doing more than one thing. That's not to say there aren't instances where you might need to resolve your dependencies not through a constructor parameter, but through some other means. So they'll come up. Don't do the, this is something known as the service locator anti-pattern and should be avoided. Patch dependencies into, yeah, yes, as Simon says. Only do that approach if you have to. You normally want to take them in through the constructor. There are a couple of exceptions. I would prefer constructor injection because of the testability benefits. Yep, as SNB said, exactly. Anybody have a good source for learning how to properly use GitHub and contribute to repos? Oh, hey, Rusty Honda. Yeah, if you have Pluralsight, Brendan, Henrik, Pluralsight. Look, it's literally a course on using GitHub. That's a thing. Man, look who that guy. Man, look at this dude. Man, that guy's cool. I like this guy. Man. Anyway, sorry, I had to because someone said a thing. There should only be one place for resolving dependencies from a service locator, which is the entry point of the to a call chain. Exactly, Simon. Such as when a web request stack is invoked. Yeah, we don't come in from that, so we can't get around that way. Let's see. GitHub has a training on their site, and actually, yeah. So the what Echo Strike actually said, their lab is actually really good. I do actually recommend you check that out now. It did not actually exist when... yeah, so as SpawnHub TV mentioned, if you don't have Pluralsight, they do have some free amount of time that you can get. Yeah, exactly. I know! In that picture, it's really hard to tell who that guy was. I think his hair was a little different, you know, looked a little bit like me. Can we get that picture as an emote? Kazru, if/when we ever get partner here on the channel, there will be some awesome new emotes, don't you worry. I have a whole bunch of emotes that are already planned out, and I've talked with a designer about that. A number of them are related to our dinosaur, so, you know, this guy that does that. So, a whole bunch of things related to him, but yes, there will also be some silly face ones, because, you know, I'm a Twitch user too. I watch a lot of gaming streams, so I'm used to that stuff. And, lucky number 7. You show up today, you follow today, and you drop me the sub. Much appreciated. Thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Welcome. For anybody who doesn't know, I often actually host Lucky number 7. Also does a developer stream, usually a little while after us. So maybe an hour or so. But you should totally check out his stream. I've watched his stuff before, and it's pretty good. So, yep. Have a good one. Yeah, no problem, man. Seriously, so one of the things, if I haven't mentioned it before, one of the big things that I am trying to do as part of DevChatter here as a thing is to overall just promote the developer community and try and build more stuff. We want more programming on Twitch. So if you notice that I try to host other people that I think are good streamers that are creating, you know, interesting content for viewers, I try to host them, I try to talk about them, and support their streams as well. So I'll show up, I'll hang out in their streams. I recommend you all do the same stuff as well. A lot of us have Discords and other things like that to help promote the community. If you are interested in streaming, we can also talk with you and help out as well. So, weren't you building a lonely developer app as in VS Live Share Find a Pair program? Oh, like a find someone to pair with? That would be a very useful feature if someone wants to build that. Okay, so step 1. I'm going to build the simplest thing that works to solve our problem. Yeah, I would love to have a find a pair programmer feature. That would be really cool. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to make this first version just work. So... Oh yeah, you're doing the actual like extensions. That's pretty fun. So here in our channel, we created a chatbot as our main thing that we want to have it play games with us. So ours does various things like playing games of Hangman. But in addition, what we're planning on doing, and we have a branch that is started along this line, is we want to build a MUD. so multi-user dimension, so think like Zork. And so we've had that branch out for a while, and I do want to build that. But I also have some other things. I have an idea that I want to build on the screen today. Not today. Sometime in the next few months, I'm going to start a new project that is going to have to do with our overlay. So some people here know that there is actually an overlay screen, we'll call it, over the stream. So up there is a bunch of, it's covered with a transparent layer that allows me to mess with things. Wow, you guys are gonna get killed in this hangman game. Okay, there's a vowel in it. Oh, yeah, so the funny thing, S&B, is when CodeRush mentioned that he was doing that, I was actually in the stream and I was like, oh, that's funny, we have a mud that was started in ours. I was like, we're doing the same kind of thing. You work on a Unity game which runs on a headless server and streams directly to a Twitch channel. The interface will be an extension, however, that's going to be after me speaking at TwitchCon. Oh, that's really neat, Lucky Number 7. I love it. That sounds awesome. I would love to see how that's getting set up. My plan's a little different. I'm going for HTML5 and JavaScript. But I'm probably going to use a library. I just haven't decided which one yet. The word was GitHub. Wow, that was very appropriate, DevChatter bot. Good choice of word. We were just talking about GitHub moments ago. So I'm not going to tell you what the game is, but I'm going to put a game over top of the stream, like literally playing on the stream, that you're going to control through chat commands with the bot. So you know you'll type in commands here. Things like that, and then that is actually going to do stuff on the stream. So I want to get a game that's basically going to take over the screen and be like, hey, yeah, we're playing, but it's going to be lightweight, so think like not actually covering it, so hopefully you can still watch the stream. Won't be that great for programming streams, which sadly is what we are, but should be fun. I like the concept of the game, so that'll be something. Alright, so in the spirit of simplest thing that works, I want to go to here, jump to here, and then I apologize for navigating around like a crazy person. Can I do this? Is that a... Yes! Oh, I love how all of my ReSharper shortcuts all work. Everything I know how to do in ReSharper just works here. So I can just get all the things for free. It's really quite fun. Go Writer, well done. All the commands Brendan loves work just fine. Okay, so I'm just going to call this refresh command. Command list command. This is temporary. This is not going to live very long. Base command. Implement our missing members. So this is going to get us set up with this. Bring that down there. True. Let's see. iRepository user role. We don't need the user role. We're going to set it right here. Mod. User roles dot mod. Oh, that was the default. I don't need to pass that in at all. Woo! Okay, cool. The animations and sound that CodeRush has in Mr. Yes, S&B. Mark is kind of a wizard. So if you don't know Mark, he's actually really awesome. And so I've worked with Mark and been friends with him for quite a long time. That guy is nuts. When he puts his mind to something, he comes up with the craziest ideas. He's kind of one of the, like, I would describe Mark as like a mad genius. And I think that's about the best way to describe that guy. He's one of those, like, he's a mad scientist. He's crazy. Alright, so inside of handle command, all I want to do to start is just say, send out a message that says, yep, this is the refresh command. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to make sure that I wired everything up right and that that works. As long as that works, then that means I wired up all the things and we are good. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to add refresh command list as a stream meta command. That makes sense to me. It's a stream meta command. And then we're going to jump over here. What would you ever think about taking commands away from chat for a game like you're making, like doing it in extensions? So, lucky number 7, the nice thing is that commands don't actually know that they're part of that they're triggered by a chat. They have parameters that are string-based, but those commands could actually get sent from anything. So the commands themselves don't. So you'll notice nothing about this. I didn't write what the chat command is. Did I write the word refresh? Did I say, you know, that string is not in here? So if we want to switch this to be triggered by an extension or something like that, we can totally do that. We could make a secondary page where people go and actually do that. We could make these commands get triggered by whispers. We could have it come in from a separate channel here on the chat. No restriction on that. So yes, I love the way you're thinking. We have tried to keep that responsibility of understanding how you get triggered from the command, from the chat to trigger a command. We try to keep that out. It bleeds in a little bit just because we are building for that only right now. But yeah, I probably should look at doing an extension at some point, because that would be another way to do an overlay without doing our overlay. Let's see, so we got that started. It's set up in the list. I'm going to go ahead and stop the project. So, which I think maybe stopped it. I don't know Ryder that well. I haven't actually. This is welcome to day 1 of me running JetBrains Ryder. Says it's building. I think. I'm not sure what it's doing. Okay, it says it's running. Connecting and the bot's there. Okay, cool. I don't know. As I said, I don't know Ryder. Ooh. Refresh didn't work. Oh, sorry. Alright, so first things first, alias add refresh command list refresh. Let me just add that. So now you can just type refresh. Luckily we have an alias system. That's actually why we have the alias system. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the execution again because I want to fix that. So why the choice of Ryder and not VS Code or VS 2017? Oh, Simon. So today I did. Yeah, you love that name, Lucky Number 7. Isn't that great? So today I had the privilege, nay, the pleasure of updating my Visual Studio, which apparently came with some updates either to the SDK or something like that, and our bot stopped building. And so since I didn't want to spend the first 20 minutes of the stream figuring out why Visual Studio and the bot refused to work together, and yes, I tried disabling all extensions, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to use Ryder. And I was like, I tried Ryder and I was like, hey, it built and ran. Okay, screw you, Visual Studio, we'll come back to you later. No! No, we've been on 2.1. Apparently, like, someone said, like, 2.1.400 or something like that came out today or something like that. And so that was a minor update and we don't have any upper limit on it. And so we're like, I could maybe dig in. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe something else. I'm not sure. As I said, I don't want to spend 20 minutes of a stream trying to figure out why it doesn't build. Like, I can do that sometimes on a stream and, like, figuring out stuff, but that feels like no one really wants to see that. That's Visual Studio updated and it failed. Because it built this morning, and then I updated this afternoon, and it stopped working. So, thanks Microsoft. Appreciate it. Alright, so it's not even like I updated the project. If I'd updated the project, that'd be one thing. But no, I changed no files, same code, and no doesn't work. Okay, so refresh command list needs to actually do a thing. So it takes in a repository, but I want it to have something else as well. I want it to have the commands list. Command list. Which is circular. Hopefully this doesn't break. VFRZ, hey, welcome. You made it. You didn't miss the whole stream. Gonna try a refresh. Should be refreshed now. Command list dot refresh. Alright, so that's what we're going to try. I don't know if this is going to work. As I said, this is V1. We're going to do a manual refresh from a command. If this works, then step 2 is going to be triggering this when we think we need one. So right now it requires a human to say, oh, we need a refresh. Type in refresh and good. But then later we're going to have it just be smart enough to refresh at the right times. And then step 3 is, instead of doing a full refresh, just make the change for what it is you did. And so that's the idea here. Step by step, simplest thing that works for now, do something more advanced later. I'm going to start up this bot. I think that's running. Yes, it's building. One interesting thing on Rider, I'm not as immediately aware that I'm building the project, so that is a strange one. I don't get like an immediate visual feedback that I started using it. VFRZ, no, I'm unintentionally on Rider today. I updated Visual Studio and it was not compiling our project anymore, yet Rider compiles it just fine, so Visual Studio is having some kind of a hiccup after its update today. And it was funny, because I mentioned that I updated and was having problems, and apparently I'm not the only person on the internet that's been having problems with the Visual Studio update today. Simon, you know the feeling. You're in a tech lead and you've been a volunteer for the team to update VS first and prove it is safe for everyone to use. Yes, exactly. Yes, Simon. Someone has to be brave and hit that button every once in a while. Echo Strike. I still have CodeRush installed, and I will use it from time to time. So I do like CodeRush, and I like ReSharper. My workflow matches ReSharper a little better than CodeRush right now, but I do like them both. Did this fail? Oh, hey! Remember how I said I think we might have created a circular dependency? We did! Woohoo! Go us. Alright, so how do we get out of that? So this asks for the list of services when it has that, which I think means that we can't actually create it until that point, and then okay, hang on. This can't take that in as a parameter. This has to get it after the fact, because otherwise we have a loop. Okay, so I don't see a great way around this. Here's what I'm going to do. So this is not ideal, but let me show you how we can make this work for now. I'm going to say isInitialized equals false, and I'm going to prefix that with an underscore because I know my own naming conventions. And then I am going to say if it is initialized, then I am going to do our underscore command list dot refresh. Actually, I'm just going to move this whole thing up there, so let me delete that. I'm going to move these three up into there. Otherwise, we're gonna say chat client dot send message refresh command not configured correctly. Okay, so now I don't want to set this from here. That's not the way we can do it. This method needs to have a public void initialize that takes in a command list, because this has to happen after the fact. There's a couple of ways we could do this. So I am going to set this up so that our command list comes in from the command handler. Alternately, I could just create this item as part of that, but then I think I might lose the refresh command itself as part of refreshing. Although, actually, now that I think about it, I have access to this list. That's an interesting idea. VFRZ, I really prefer Rider, at least for .NET Core project. It's faster and lighter. So VFRZ, yeah, Rider has, I mean, I've been able to use it pretty well. Some of the things that bug me is I need to figure out how to make some of these, the text in some of these files bigger. Because it's harder for the stream, because I need to be able to get big fonts for you guys to be able to read. So I keep having to, zoom everything in. I'm glad you like the music, Faku Rodriguez. I'm a big fan of it. That's why we listen to it here. You can actually find details about the music down below. These are actually just tracks from a musician that I otherwise am a big fan of. And he has some that he's good with people using for their own purposes, and this is one of them. So I'm like, hey, cool, you've got free music that I can use, and I already like your stuff. So, yep, I enjoy it. It's nice, kind of quiet, good for relaxing, getting some stuff done though. Going into display scan. Where's the, you talking about inside of Rider? Their display settings? I mean, I believe you. If you tell me where they are, I can adjust the settings. Oh, you meant in the Windows 10 settings. Oh, okay. So you're saying edit, so if I go to File Settings, Editor, and then General and Enable, appearance. Ooh, show white space. Nice. Editor tab, font. Monospace fonts, line spacing, size. I don't know. I wish I could just tell it to zoom, but I don't know if that maybe did something with it. We'll find out. I was looking at the recommended books on Amazon and noticed Kindle versions are pricier than books. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, I have no idea why the Kindle versions of some tech books are more expensive than the physical editions. I have no idea. It makes no sense to me either. Okay. Yeah, so VFRZ, that's what I've been doing. I've been doing this every time in order to get the right sizing. And sorry for doing that wobbliness with that, everybody. But, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So Windows Blue, that's the problem. And I don't want to do that everywhere. Yeah, so, exactly, as Malachi said, for tech books, I prefer having a physical copy rather than a Kindle edition, because on a tech book, there are a couple of things I like to do. I write in those books. It's useful. I like to, mess them. Those books do not do well under me. You give me a novel, I'm going to take great care of it. You give me a tech book, I'm going to write in it. I'm going to highlight stuff. It's going to be fun. Yeah, exactly, Echo Strike. That's the problem. If I adjust the font here, I don't get that. I hear my son behind me. I don't know if he's going to come in and visit the stream or not. I don't know if his mom can hear me. Most of the one scores for books are, it looks terrible on Kindle. Nice, Malachi, yeah. Kindle one is that you have your whole reference library with you on your phone and any client site if you need it. Oh, yes, Simon, that is a great point. Okay, so I'm calling this. Here's what I want to do to make this work. I'm going to jump over to the command handler, and then what I want to do is I want to say when we're setting up, before we get started, so I have my command list at this point. I want to say where is it? So our command is not no. I could do it here, which I don't like. So this is why I'm saying this is not the code we want to keep. This is v1. Remove this soon. Remove this soon and replace with smarter code. If bot command is refresh command list command, initialize, and we're going to pass in the underscore command list. And needs initializing. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually changing this. I'm going to make a public bool needs initializing instead of this one. I'm going to set it equal to true by default. We're going to get rid of this set because if... Can I flip these? Invert. There we go. Not if needs initializing, say that. Otherwise, gonna do that. Now, when we call initialize, we're gonna set it equal to false. So there we go. So once we've initialized, we set that to false, and then we can call it. And then when we come in here, we say gonna refresh, should be refreshed now. And then out here, we called through and we said, hey, do this, if that, then do that, call that. Okay, I'm going to catch up on chat. Sorry about that, everybody. Just wanted to make sure I got that code written there. Okay. Oh, yeah, so many of us have massive libraries of books in our houses, though, and we love them, Ancient Coder. But yeah, you're right. It does save a lot of space, but I agree it is rather sad that they use it as an opportunity to not only save on print costs, but to squeeze the customer for more money. Yes, exactly, Simon. It's kind of annoying that the digital copy of a book is more expensive than the paper copy, because you have to warehouse that and other things. It's like, there's no way the dev cost of that book was higher, but who knows. Yes, it's all about getting more money from us, because they know that you're probably willing to, if you want the Kindle edition, you're probably willing to pay more money for it, and it doesn't even have to be that great. Okay, so this might work. Might. Let's find out. Best way to find out if your code works, run it. Build succeeded. It's initializing. The bot is in the chat. We're going to use a command, and the bot responds, so perfect. The bot is running. It's up and going. Definitely has its command list. It's going to try to refresh. It should have refreshed. Perfect. So that should refresh the list when it does that. Kindle is convenient when you want to read. Oh, yes, VFRZ. That is actually a great point. If you are traveling, it's way easier to bring a Kindle. Although I'm a big fan of like the little lightweight novels as well. Not tech books, but like, you know, you want to just read like a little novel. And yes, I have a whole bookshelf full of novels that I can sort of just grab here. They're within reach. And the bot is being stupid. We gotta fix this. We said on the last stream, when we changed up the behavior to make our messaging a little bit better, I said my one concern was because of how fast it would execute, it might be able to get like multiple messages sent through all at once if we don't have the bot running for a little while. Okay, Windows Blue. How would I interact with it at this stage? You mean the bot? There's a lot of ways to interact with the bot right now. We have a whole bunch of commands that actually... Yeah, so exactly, Simon. And so a lot of times when I'm building new commands, keep in mind you guys can run most of these commands that I use. So like when I click one of these, like one of these or one of these or one of these, so like I have little buttons that I can press to send through like the common commands. So when I spam the chat with those, I'm not typing those out. I actually have a little thing that'll just send those messages from me. Now I could have wired those up to just have me send these same types of messages, but I like that when I send it, the bot does it too. Because that also tells all of you that, like, those commands exist. So if someone shows up here and says, hey, where's the link to the Discord or something like that, any of you could just type in !Discord. And in fact, when we were starting out the bot project, someone named Magnus was one of our regulars at that time and is currently immortalized in a command. So if you're ever trying to break our commands, we use the Magnus command as a way of saying, like, hey, stop trying to break stuff. So, like, a great example of that is our schedule command. So if anyone is wanting to know when our... yeah, sorry, Windows Blue, you can't actually get the link in there. It'll block that one. So the Nightbot will. It's very harsh on posting links. But anyway, our schedule command, Windows Blue, it's not a song request on YouTube. It is, it's a link to our YouTube channel. We don't have a song request one. But what I was saying is, our schedule command, for, like, wanting to know what time it is, you can put in your place. So I said schedule Ohio, and it gives me the time for Ohio. So if you, say, lived in Germany, you can say schedule Germany, and I love that it does this, and it works so well. This is one of the features that I'm a big fan of with our bot, but the cool thing was, when we were building this, everybody was doing stuff like this. They were like, schedule, you know, the moon, and things like that, right? And they're like, how do I get this thing to crash, right? So they're just doing all these weird stuff and seeing what they can do to mess with it. So, kind of funny. Alright, so refresh will start to work a little bit, but there's a special type... Hang on, I just turned it on. If you guys watched, I clicked the little red X up, the red square up here and stopped the bot. I want to change something with how it starts up. There's collects extensions, add simple commands right here. Okay. Add simple commands from repository. Do time zone IDs work? Windows Blue, no. So that's on our backlog, and that's a great question. Where is it? Right here. Time zone. There it is. So on our schedule command, doing schedule by time zone. So that is actually on our backlog, is to do this. Oh, alright guys, hang on. Ladies, gentlemen, hold your horses. I'll bring the bot back up. Everybody's trying to run the commands right now. Alright, the bot's back in there. Hey Rexy, welcome. There you go, you can run the schedules now. So part of the thing that makes time zone IDs challenging. So this is actually a cool programming concept that I'm going to talk that I do want to talk about. So Windows Blue asked about time zones. And actually, yeah, so Yeah, so Windows Blue, so we do based on time zones, and I do just print it out with some formatting. So we're not perfect about that, but it's still pretty usable. We had someone that was going to take a look at this, but here's the complexity with a time zone based schedule command. So Ryakhovskiy, for example, just asked for the schedule in Finland, which is Eastern European summertime right now. The problem is, if Ryakhovskiy had asked for Eastern European time, right? So he said EET, which I think is what they're on during the winter, versus Eastern European summertime, which is what they're in the summer. If he asked for the wrong one, because I know a lot of people here will tell you, oh yeah, and it starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, that's not true. It starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time during the summer. So my streams right now start at 2 Eastern Daylight Time. Exactly. And so the question then that comes up, Windows Blue, is do you adjust for their potential mistake? So if someone asks for Eastern European time, do you give them Eastern European summertime? Exactly, yeah. So a funny thing, Lucky Number 7, I had and Simon, I had a meeting one time with someone that I didn't know where they were in the world. And they told me a meeting time, and they said GMT. That person lived in London, and that's how I messed up. Is because sometimes people use GMT instead of UTC because they're basically the same as like a general one. So like I know that I'm at like, GMT -4, right? Or UTC -4. And so I was like, oh, they were given the UTC one. Cool. I'm like, that's a great way to schedule. No, they meant British summertime. They were living in London and just didn't realize their time zone had changed. So I showed up to the meeting an hour off. Yeah, exactly, Lucky Number 7. So that was my screw up, because I was like, yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I'll translate that into. Yeah, that's what I mean, Lucky Number 7. It was a Brit that did not know that they were not in GMT, they were in BST. And I run into that with people in my time zone. They'll say that we're in Eastern Standard Time right now. No, we're not Eastern Standard Time. We're Eastern Daylight Time. We switch. Like, that's actually how daylight savings time works. Your region changes from one time zone to another. So that is an important concept that mostly it's just developers that know. Nobody else seems to know this. So it's kind of funny. It's a very crazy concept. When you ask Alexa for the time in, let's say, Pacific Standard Time, she'll tell you the time in UTC -8. Oh, yeah, Windows Blue, which is not the current time. Yeah, exactly. Because Alexa gave it to you in the wrong one because you asked for the wrong one. And that's the thing, is I want my bot to be like, no, that's not your time zone. You're like, you are wrong. I just don't know how to do that. So that's why we went with location-based, because we can go look up what time zone you're supposed to be using, whether you know it or not. So that's why we didn't do time zone-based, we did place-based. So you could do something like this. You could say schedule London, right? And that's different from schedule England or schedule United Kingdom. So those are all so London, England, and United Kingdom are all returning the same time zone. They're technically different things in different places, but they'll return back the same time zone and give us the right thing. Time zone IDs account for DST. Think American / I don't know what you mean, Windows Blue. I would love to know what you're talking about, though, because if there is some kind of unique identifier, the challenge is that people aren't going to ask for it that way because they're not going to know, an ID other than, like, saying Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time or Greenwich Mean Time versus British Summertime versus Central European Summertime. So it's kind of a difficult thing. What if there was a metric of imperial measurement in time, seconds and... actually, there is there is a metric time echo strike. It really is a thing. I don't recommend using it because no one else does. System time zone info, get system time zones. Use that in the instant C# console. Oh, yeah, I could Windows Blue. And I love that you. Where is it in this one? Anybody know how I get the console, like the effective immediate window in Rider? I'm new to Rider. They've got to have some kind of an immediate window, right? Does anybody know? It's not the terminal. Yeah, no, I'm actually in Rider right now, Windows Blue, because Visual Studio. I updated Visual Studio today, and it was nice enough to not want to build the code anymore. That Rider apparently has no problem building, so thanks Visual Studio. But yeah, I will have to figure that one out. So anyway, so a couple of things that I do want to mention while people are here. Today is actually we're trying a new thing on the stream today. So what we did was we are doing what we're calling Solid Saturdays, which is where on each Saturday we are going to focus on one of the solid principles of object-oriented design. So today we were talking a lot about single responsibility principle and how that applied to all of our stuff. That's not to say I didn't get off topic and talk about other things, because I love talking about code. You will never have trouble getting me to talk about other code stuff. But what I do want to mention is that today was the single responsibility principle one, and as part of that, we have some other things coming up that I want to mention. So right now, we're in this one right here, single responsibility principle. If you want to catch our... yeah, go for it, Lucky number 7. I don't mind chatting about code. Don't call it a Discord. If you want to join our guild, just click this link to join the guild. Anyway, so what I was saying is, you can check out our Solid Saturdays that we're going to be doing. There are going to be a whole bunch of them. I linked to it there in the chat. That link will actually get you here, which you can watch the video for the one we're doing right now that's live, or you can get yourself reminders for the future ones by checking any of these. So you could get individual reminders for our future Solid Saturdays, or a specific reminder. So if there's a solid principle of object-oriented design that you don't know that well, say open-close principle, Liskov substitution, interface segregation, or the dependency inversion principle, that last one down there, if any of those are things you don't have a great grasp on, want to see how other people have implemented, maybe you already know how it works, but you want to see it in practice in somebody's code, we're going to be talking about those. In each one of these episodes, I'm giving a brief description of how it is, like what it's supposed to do, why we do it that way, why we think that's valuable, and talk to you about some good and bad examples of where you're following it and where you're not. And then we're going to look at some code examples in our code that we write here on stream and talk about how it's following one of these principles. And then we're going to spend the rest of the day coding and do some stuff like working on it and say, yeah, it's following this principle for this reason, and discuss what they are. So, should be fun. Chucklestone, hello, hi, welcome. Even admit... That's pretty funny, Lucky number 7. I hadn't realized that they used to call it a guild. That's kind of funny, but makes a lot of sense. So Windows Blue, I think what Lucky number 7 is talking about is the fact that it probably started as a way of coordinating guilds, clans, whatever, as part of a lot of online gaming. And because Discord is so gaming focused, that's probably how it started. Lucky number 7 sounds like you know a lot better than I would. So awesome. Yeah, see, it makes a lot of sense, and I can understand that it's hard for them to get that out of it entirely. So as a developer, I can tell you the cost to actually remove a concept from your code is enormous sometimes. Okay, so as mentioning on that, I want to bring up one other thing. So you guys probably saw our schedule posted in chat like 20, 30, 40 times. I don't know how many, because of people were running our schedule command. So I will mention you can also find it down below, and the schedule command can also be used using numbers for your offset. So if you actually know your UTC offset, you can use it like that. The neat thing about it, though, is now that we've mentioned our schedule, I want to talk about... Yeah, see, and you can search for places too. So we actually stream 4 times a week here. We stream on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So it gets... we get a lot of streaming in here. So what I try to do is I try to break it up a little bit so we have a little bit of variety. That's part of the reason for Solid Saturdays, so we have a clear focus on Saturdays, what we're working on here. And then in addition, we also have another series that we do here that I do want to mention, and I need to schedule out the next episodes in this series. I haven't done that yet because I'm trying to schedule some other stuff first. But I will get these in here. But our other series is called Learn to Code in C#, and we have a lot of developers that are beginner developers, or people that are interested in learning to code, or just want to learn C# and they know other languages. So we have a number of people in here that want to get better specifically with C#. So what we have is a series called Learn to Code in C#, where I start out at a beginner level, and all the episodes are follow along. So it's essentially install this set of tools, and you can go right along with us, doing exactly what we do here on the stream. So you're going to code along, we're going to do something together. Usually we make them pretty easy, so that everybody can keep up, but it still lets you see how professional developers actually write code, and you can learn a little bit. You're not passing an exclamation point there, Windows Blue. See? It's working. So anyway, so if you or someone you know wants to learn C# or wants to learn programming, send them over to our Learn to Code. That's actually what we're going to be doing on Monday. So we're going to do a couple of hours of just teaching developers. If you already know how to code, want to help out, want to show up, or just want to follow along, we invite you to show up as well. And we think you'll have fun with it. Oh yeah, if you give it a number it doesn't understand, Windows Blue, it's just going to give it back to you in UTC. So that's what its default is, because we decided whether we wanted to just give a message. Oh, awesome, Sudo. Looking forward to seeing you there. So the idea here is that we want the bot to still respond with something useful, so we give it back to you in UTC. And we should probably tell you that it's in UTC, but that's a minor bug. Okay, so we've got that on Monday. Got that. If you want to see what our schedule is, one of the best ways to do this, and this is linked down below, but you can find our stream info section actually will often have what our planned streams are. So if we're doing something special, I will put it out here. So you'll notice that we had a clean architecture refactoring thing on Monday. This is today's, doing the Solid Saturday. On Monday we're doing Learn to Code. I'm trying to see if I can get some guests for these days. And thank you for that follow. Notice I got a couple of follows there. The follow train has started, so welcome. Thank you for that, everybody. If you do want to make sure you catch our future streams, the best way to do that is to click the follow button. Yeah, so... Oh, sorry, Echo Strike, you're not on the top list right now. So some other people have you beat. Could you please enforce a 24-hour format for UTC? Windows Blue. Oh, so you mean like instead of doing AM PM, doing 24-hour format? We could potentially do that. Oh, and sorry, SNB, I do not actually have the hype overlay turned on right now, so you cannot spam the thing with a hype command. Okay, so, yeah, I'll consider it Windows Blue. If you want to... Oh, sudo! Yes, we always actually want help with our code here, so if anyone is interested, that is absolutely something to do. Windows Blue, I have a task for you. If you want to make a suggestion for how we can change something or improve something about our bot, the best place to do that is actually to go to the issues section for the bot. That, or you can send us a pull request. I need to fix our previous one because apparently something failed, but I will take a look at that. But yeah, if you take a look at our GitHub, all of our code's out there. Sudo, if you are interested in working on any of our code with us, you are welcome to send us a pull request and or make suggestions, anything like that. We always appreciate any contributions from the community. We do get them from time to time. I have a couple sitting here that I need to get to. Do we help with code? Oh, yeah, sudo! Sorry, I misread what you said there. Good catch, S&B, on actually realizing what you'd said, because I read the wrong thing. Yeah, some people will help you with code, and as S&B said, one of the best places to do that is to actually ask on our Discord, because if someone in the community is interested in helping out, that's a place that they could do it. So we have a pretty nice community of developers, so if you are interested in helping other people, chatting, or just discussing cool stuff, seriously, you should check out our Discord. It really is a good place. We actually have a lot of discussions that go on in there. We have, I think, about 200 developers over in our Discord, so it's pretty good. 18, 18, 18, 18, 18. 81818 81818. Yeah, that's a really good idea, Echo Strike. I'd have to figure out when that is, and I think I'd choose my own time zone for it. Yeah, probably better to do that at 8 p.m., especially since it's already after the morning one. And yeah, only in America. And thank you for that follow, Sudo. But anyway, everybody, I just want to say that I had an awesome stream today, so thank you for showing up. I am going to wrap up here, because we've been running for quite a while now. I think I ran my uptime, and we've been going for 2 hours, 43 minutes. Most of my streams are between 2 and 3 hours. I try to keep to that on Saturdays, just because, time with family. So I don't want to be caught in here the whole time. But I hope to see you all on Monday, and if you are not planning on showing up to the beginner stream, then definitely show up on Tuesday, because we're going to do some fun coding together. Probably a lot more than we did today. Today was a pretty light one because we were talking so much about single responsibility principle. Ancient Coder, glad you were here the whole time. Glad you really enjoyed the stream. I hope everybody did. I hope you had a fun time. I hope everybody felt welcome. I really enjoyed doing this stream, so hopefully I will see you all soon. Take care. Make sure you click the follow button, subscribe. You can find our old videos on YouTube. If you want to check out our archives, you can also find videos here on Twitch. And I will see you all next time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. And happy coding. Take care, everybody.